There's a couple in your neighborhood right now doing everything right. Hazel, 34, makes $82,000 in marketing. Nico, 36, makes $90,000 in IT, which puts them in the top 25% of American households. They've got a smart mirror gym in the garage they use twice. They look at each other with that specific quiet panic of people who genuinely don't understand how they're still this broke. One job, supported a wife and 2 kids, owned a house, and had more spending money at the end of the month than Nico and Hazel do today. That's it. My name is Thomas. But before we dive in, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next breakdown. This isn't a story about people earning more. It's a story about an entire generation getting tricked into bidding against themselves and losing. Once you see how this works, you can't unsee it. Let me tell you about 2 families. The first is Tom and Susan, 1973. The median male salary, around $78,400 in today's dollars. Susan stays home with their 2 kids. Their mortgage is $10,700 a year. Health insurance about $2,100. 1 car, total fixed costs around $42,000. After taxes and fixed costs, they have about $36,400 left to spend on whatever they want. The second family is Justin and Kimberly, early 2000s, both work. Combined income $67,800, 75% more than Tom and Susan, adjusted for inflation. Except their mortgage is $8,978, up 76%. Health insurance $1,650, up 74%. 2 cars $8,000. Daycare for the 3-year-old $5,320. After school care $4,350. And that second income stacks them into a 33% federal bracket instead of 24%. Total fixed costs $50,755. Kimberly earns way more than Tom and Susan. They also have $800 less to spend at the end of the year. They are, on paper, wealthier. In their actual lives, they are poorer. 2 paychecks, a 75% income jump, less spending money than a guy in 1973 who fixed his own carburetor on weekends. This isn't my opinion. This is from a 2003 book called The 2-Income Trap, written by a Harvard bankruptcy law professor named Elizabeth Warren. The senator stuff and her daughter Amelia Tyagi. They studied over 2,000 bankrupt families. They ran the budgets, and the numbers they found were frankly deranged. You might be thinking, okay, well, that's because people today have iPhones and avocado toast. And I'd love to tell you that's true, because at least then the solution would be easy. To 4 times your salary, housing payment no more than 25%. His ceiling is X. Then Justin and Kimberly pull up. The bank says, you can borrow against both incomes at 28% to 36% and put down 3% instead of 20%. Their ceiling is double. The seller picks Justin and Kimberly. The house sells for the dual income number. Now repeat that auction in every neighborhood for 30 years. If every family can suddenly borrow twice as much, what happens to prices? They go up until both incomes are required to win. Single income families can't compete ever again. The second paycheck didn't make families richer. It made the houses more expensive. 2-income households accidentally bid each other into a corner. That's not a market. That's an arms race in mortgage paper, and both armies lost. But housing is just one part of it. Let's talk about why families chose those expensive houses in the first place, because this one is honestly the most depressing chapter of the whole story. Picture 2 houses. Same square footage, same year, same bedrooms. One in a good school district, the other in an okay one. Identical houses, different price tags. According to a Brookings Institution study of the 100 largest U.S. metros, homes near high-scoring schools cost on average $205,000 more than homes near low-scoring schools. That's roughly a $100,000 surcharge for sending your kid to a public school slightly above the local average. A $100,000 surcharge for free school. And here's where the bidding war eats itself. You bid more for the good school district, which means you need the second paycheck, which means the second parent works, which means daycare costs go up, which means you need even more income, which means you bid harder next time. The school district was supposed to be the reward for working 2 jobs. It became the reason you can't stop. Now let's talk about an expense that literally did not exist as a household line item for most of human civilization. Childcare. In 1973, when Susan stayed home with the kids, the cost of childcare was 0, not low, 0. Today, the national average for infant center-based care is over $14,760 per year. In Washington, D.C., it's $24,243. Costs more to send a 1-year-old to daycare than to send an 18-year-old to college in most of the country. The Department of Health and Human Services says childcare is affordable at 7% of income. Not a single state meets that benchmark for center-based infant care. 0 states. And here's the math that ruins your day. When the second parent goes to work, their paycheck gets stacked on top for tax purposes. In 2026, married couples hit the 22% bracket at $99,450 and 24% at $206,700. If Nico makes $90,000 and Hazel adds $82,000, that second income lands in the 22% to 24% range, plus state and payroll. Childcare credit phases down. Earned income credit disappears. ACA subsidies vanish. You earn more on paper and take home less in cash. The cruelest thing they do is hand a huge chunk to a daycare and then hand another huge chunk to the IRS. Be handing over $26,000 to $40,000 a year in childcare alone just to be allowed to work. That's before taxes. That's before the second car, the work wardrobe, and the takeout dinners because nobody had time to cook. And here's the trap inside the trap. If you quit your job, you can't afford the mortgage you signed when you had two incomes. So you keep working to pay for the childcare that exists because you keep working. It's a perfect financial Mobius strip. Okay, deep breath. We've talked about the bidding war. Now let's talk about a part of the two-income trap that doesn't get nearly enough attention. In 1970, a typical middle-class family had something that doesn't show up on any economic spreadsheet. A non-working adult in the prime of their working life sitting at home. We usually call this person a stay-at-home mom, but that's not actually what she was. Economically speaking, she was an unemployment insurance policy with zero premiums, infinite paid time off, and a customer service line that always picked up. Dad got laid off, mom could go get a job. If dad got sick, mom could pick up part-time work. If interest rates spiked or the car broke down or the roof leaked, mom was the variable that could change. So the family had a backup engine. Today, when both parents work full-time, that backup engine is gone. It's already running. You can't say, well, the other one can step in. The other one is in. Both incomes are already committed to fixed costs. There's no reserve. If Tom gets laid off in 1973, the family takes a hit and adapts. If Nico gets laid off in 2026, the mortgage doesn't get paid next month. They built a life around two incomes, and now they only have one. Think about that for a second. They're more vulnerable to hitting a crisis because there are two of them in the workforce, not one. And when that crisis comes, they have less ability to absorb it than Tom did 50 years ago. Twice the risk, zero backup, that's the trade. This isn't just theory. Elizabeth Warren's team ran the numbers, linking bankruptcy court records to census data. Their conclusion: two earner married couples are about 10% more likely to file for bankruptcy 3 to 5 years later than otherwise similar married households. Same income, same education, same demographics. The two earner couples had spent both paychecks on housing. When a shock hit, they had nowhere to go. The single income family of 1970 had margin. The dual income family of 2026 has none. That's not a personal finance failure. That's the trap snapping shut. It's the 28th of the month. Nico is sitting at the kitchen table looking at the bank account on his phone. The mortgage cleared. That was $3,600. Daycare, $2,600. Two-car payments, $1,450 between them. Groceries this month, about $1,200. Insurance, $950. Gas, internet, the kids' activities, the dentist. T-scrolls. There's $43 left in checking. Payday is Friday. When your gross income is $172,000, your brain thinks you're rich. Your tax return says you're rich. The bank that approved your $550,000 mortgage definitely said you're rich. But your bank account on the 28th says something different. Your bank account on the 28th says something different, and you are far from alone. According to the Bank of America Institute, nearly 24% of U.S. households are living paycheck to paycheck. Among lower income households, it's 29%. These are not people who failed at money. These are people who got priced in. I know what you're thinking. Thomas, I'd like to stop being attacked. I get it. But here's the thing. You're not the problem. The math is the problem. The spending at six-figure levels, and the spending isn't even your choice. It's the bid you have to make to participate. Housing, healthcare, childcare, education. Things you literally cannot opt out of as a middle-class family with kids. Those 4 categories ate the entire second paycheck. And the rest of the economy is happy to let you blame yourself, by the way. Because if you blame yourself, you'll just work harder. And working harder is how the trap stays sprung. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Hazel brings home $82,000 gross. Sounds great, right? But let's actually follow that money. Taxes first. 22% to 24% federal, plus state, plus FICA. Her $82,000 just became roughly $54,000. Then daycare for their youngest. At $14,760 a year, she's down to $39,240. Add the second car she needs to commute. Payment, insurance, gas, maintenance. Call it $8,000. Now she's at $31,240. Add the takeout on the nights nobody had time to cook and the coffee she grabs on the way to a job she didn't even want to drive to. What's actually left from Hazel's $82,000 that hits the family bank account? Under $12,000 a year, maybe less. This household is netting about $8 an hour for her trouble. That's not laziness. That's not bad budgeting. The system quietly priced in your second paycheck before you ever earned it. Let me tell you about another couple, Ezra and Lily. Combined income $170,000. Basically the same as Nico and Hazel. Same metro, same careers, same number of kids. But 10 years ago, when house hunting, they looked at the $650,000 the bank approved them for and said no. They bought a $380,000 house in a good but not elite school district. Their friends thought they were nuts. Their in-laws asked when they'd buy something nice. Their mortgage takes 22% of just Ezra's income. Every month, Lily's entire paycheck goes into index funds, has for 10 years. Today, they have over $550,000 invested. Their house is paid down to under $240,000. Last year, Lily quit a job that was destroying her, took 6 months off, then started consulting at half the income. They didn't lose the house. They didn't go into debt. They barely had to discuss it because they built their fixed costs around one income. This is the move. Live as if you only had one income. I don't mean quit your job. I don't mean send anyone home. Structure your fixed costs, the mortgage, the car payments, the insurance, the daycare, to fit comfortably inside one paycheck, ideally the larger one. The second paycheck becomes your wealth engine. The benchmark, if you want a hard number, is this. Total monthly housing costs, no more than 28% of one income, not combined income. Total debt service, no more than 36% of one income. If you can't make the math work, the house is too expensive for your actual risk profile. Doesn't matter what the bank approved you for. The bank isn't the one filing the bankruptcy paperwork 3 years from now. I know this sounds brutal. I know it means a smaller house in a less prestigious zip code. I know your in-laws will have opinions. But Ezra and Lily have what Nico and Hazel don't, what nobody at the office talks about. They have a choice. Let me leave you with the cleanest way to think about this. The two-income trap is not really about income. It's about flexibility. The 1970s single-income family had less money, but more margin. Less stuff, but more reserves. A smaller house, but the option to keep it if dad lost his job. That margin, that reserve, that option, that's what wealth actually is. Not the salary, not the square footage. The ability to absorb a shock without losing everything. Two incomes were supposed to give you double the security. Instead, they gave you double the expectations, double the fixed costs, and zero backup plan. You didn't get rich, you got conscripted. So go back to Nico and Hazel for a second. Top 25% of households. 2 careers, 2 cars, a smart mirror gym, and a checking account that hits $43 every month on the 28th. They look rich on every form they fill out. Inside their own house on a quiet Tuesday night, they don't feel rich at all. Because they aren't. They're soldiers in a bidding war they never agreed to fight. The way out is not earning more. They've already tried that. They earn $172,000 and they're still drowning. The way out is refusing to let the bid set the size of their life. Living like they have one paycheck, investing the other. It's the exact opposite of the way the bidding war is designed to make them too tired to attempt. Hey. Will it feel like sacrifice? Yeah. They'll watch other dual income families move into bigger houses while they stay in theirs. They'll feel like they're falling behind in a race they never agreed to enter. But when the next recession hits, when a medical bill arrives, when one of them wants to start a business or just leave a job that's destroying them, they'll have options. The other families won't. That's the actual definition of being middle class, not the income bracket, the optionality. So tonight, before you go to sleep, ask yourself one question. If one of these 2 paychecks disappeared tomorrow, what would actually happen? Would you adapt? Or would the trap snap shut? Because the answer to that question is the only one that matters.